Hi everyone, Dan from Paddle and Portage Canoes here, and today I'd like to talk about a few strokes or paddling techniques that will hopefully help to improve your control on the water, your efficiency on the water, and also your versatility in multiple situations. We can do this through a range of individual strokes, but also through some techniques to implement with other strokes you may already know to hopefully be able to combine those and create your own rhythm on the water as you go. Hopefully this will make you flow a little bit better and increase efficiency and increase your overall experience and enjoyment of your time on the water. The first technique we'd like to introduce is referred to as feathering, which is the resetting of your paddle to perform a stroke without physically removing it from the water and with minimal resistance. The way we know that we can do this is by using the leading edge, pointing in the direction we're resetting, going back to our stroke and performing the stroke once more. The way we make sure that our paddle is facing the right way is using our thumb as an indicator on the grip, pointing in the direction we want to reset, again, slicing out, back to our normal stroke, performing, and this can be repeated multiple times without physically removing the paddle from the water, which gives you a lot of opportunities to combine strokes, but also reduce fatigue over the course of the day. While the act of feathering is a great way to reset a bunch of different strokes, there are some particular strokes that we teach feathering in order to perform a certain function. Some examples of these, and the ones we'll show you today, are referred to as the feathered draw and the feathered pry. When it comes to doing a feathered draw, the action of drawing is pulling water towards my boat, which in turn makes my boat go the opposite direction. In the case of a feathered draw, we would be starting out drawing water towards us and then using that act of feathering by pointing my thumb outwards, resetting the paddle and drawing the water towards me again. If you're paddling on your own, this stroke is best performed for the center for the best effect of going sideways. However, if you're paddling with two or more paddlers, you'll all need to coordinate on the same side at the same pace in order to get a very nice, smooth sideways motion. Now, each maneuvering stroke that we apply has a counterpart which provides an opposite function. In this case, when we're referring to a draw, it is the action of pulling water towards my canoe. The opposite of this is to pry or push water away from my canoe. In the action of a feathered pry, we will start with our paddle as far under the boat as we possibly can, keeping our hand in a locked position and rotating our body to push water away from the boat. When we want to reset, we'll push our thumb outwards in order to make our blade slice back into our starting position under the boat, reset our stroke, and push out again. You will find that this feels a little bit less comfortable than the action of pulling water in. However, it does mean you don't have to swap sides to provide that same function of going sideways in multiple different directions. Now, in addition to the act of feathering, which is moving your blade through the water with minimal resistance, there's another technique referred to as sculling. This is moving your paddle through the water with constant resistance, which translates to constant force on your paddle. This constant force can be used to go in any direction, but today we're going to introduce you to something called the Sculling Draw and the Sculling Pry. So in order to actually create our sculling action, I need to move my paddle parallel to my canoe. To actually create force, I need to create an angle with my blade. In the case of a sculling draw, I need to make sure that the leading edge of my blade is facing away from my canoe while that parallel action is happening with my paddle. Now the catch is, as I get to the end of my stroke in this direction and I want to create constant force, my leading edge will need to change as I bring my paddle back. This is now my leading edge as I pull the water back. Now, to create that constant force, we're going to need to constantly move our paddle back and forth, changing that angle, going from front leading edge to back leading edge, constantly moving that paddle parallel to the canoe. You should feel force with each movement of that paddle. This will create backwards force, pushing my boat towards my paddle. Now, for a sculling pry or pushing water away from us, we still need to stick with our parallel movement of our paddle. However, our leading edge will now change. Therefore, when I'm looking at my leading edge, that will now need to go towards my boat as I push forward, directing water away from my boat. And as I get to the end of my stroke, again, leading edge towards the canoe, bringing it back across the boat in a parallel fashion. Now, something to note about the sculling pry is it's a lot less comfortable to do than the act of doing a sculling draw. This is due to a bit more of a pushing action that's forced onto you as you move your paddle backwards and forwards. So please be aware of this. It's not as easy and takes a lot more practice and focus in order to complete correctly. Now, in the past, you may have been taught multiple strokes that focus on steering or controlling the canoe from the stern or back. However, the bow draw is a great way for a tandem or solo paddler to gain control over the front of the canoe. In order to perform our bow draw, we need to consider a couple of things. One is ensuring that we, the paddler, are safe and free from injury. Two is ensuring that our stroke is efficient and placed correctly to perform the desired outcome. The way we do this is we want to hold our paddle out in front of us with an indicator thumb. We then want to take that thumb, rotating the shaft of our paddle in our hand so our thumb is touching the top of our shoulder, and then we're placing our blade approximately 45 degrees off the bow. What this does, if we're in a forwards motion, we'll grab our paddle and pull our boat around. This stroke can be done as a static, holding the paddle in the water while we have forward momentum, or a dynamic stroke where we start out and pull the water in ourselves to the bow and use our feathering action to reset, pulling through to the bow again. This will help us bring the bow around towards our paddle in a drawing motion, as we've discussed with previous strokes. One thing to note about this stroke is that there is the possibility of injury if it's not completed correctly. The way that we do this is to make sure that as we place our paddle in the water, the blade is within the square of our shoulders. To create our angle, we must rotate our body, still keeping the paddle in place, and again, using our body every time we need to move our paddle. If the blade goes past my shoulders, it increases the tension on the shoulder joint, which can lead to injuries. So please keep this in mind as you're practicing and utilizing this stroke. Introducing a bow draw to our quiver of strokes opens up yet another stroke to us. This is referred to as the C stroke, which is the combination of a bow draw flowing into a J stroke, creating that shape of a C in the water. Now, the reason why I would use a C stroke as opposed to just a J stroke is the action of bringing my bow across towards my paddle before performing my J will reduce the amount of correction required at the end of the J stroke. This is a really good option when you're first taking off and don't already have momentum, or if you want to try and stay on track a little bit better and require a small amount of force at the start of your stroke to keep you even more straight as you paddle. We hope that these strokes and techniques are helpful to you on your canoeing journey, and we would love to hear your stories if you attempt them and have a go. If you have any questions, please let us know in the comments or share your experience so others can learn from it. For further tips, tricks on all things canoeing, please like and subscribe. And for all of your canoeing equipment and accessory needs, please check out paddleandportagecanoes.com.au. All of our information is below in the description. We also provide private instruction or group instruction. But in the meantime, this is Dan from Paddle and Portage Canoes signing out.